Okay, we're back with lesson 3-4. This is video 2, and it's the -1 trick. So let's go ahead and look at our next example. We're going straight in. Example number 3. Now, you had to know that every equation was not going to just automatically cancel. That's just not the way things that work, okay? So we're going to look at what do you do when the variable, one of the variables won't automatically cancel. So if we look at this one, if we just tried to combine the two equations together, then I would get a 3x and a 6y is equal to 9. That did not help me at all. What I need to have happen is I need a variable to eliminate. So we've got to make one of these 3y's be a -3y so that it would go away. So if you'll recall back with our properties of equality, you can add, subtract, multiply, divide any number you want to, as long as you do the same things to both sides of the equation. It will remain equal, and the equation is not changed, truly changed. The form looks a little bit different, but it's still equal to each other. So you got to think of this as maybe like chess or checkers, where you're trying to strategically get rid of one of the variables, like you're trying to beat the equation. So you got to get rid of one of these y's. So what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply by a -1, because if we multiply by a -1, that would make that a -3y. But if you do it to one side, you have to do it to the other side of the equation so that it remains equal. So once we do that, we would have a -6x. And then when you distribute it over here, you multiply it by both sides, that would be a -3y. And -1 times 0 is 0. This equation, we're just going to bring over just like it is, because we don't need that to change. We need that to stay a +3y. And now, when you put them together, when you combine them, that's a +3y and a -3y. That goes to 0y. So those just eliminate. So we would have a -9x is equal to 9. Solve for x. It's being multiplied, so you're going to divide by a negative. Don't forget that's a negative. So you're dividing by a -9. So x would be equal to a -1. That's the x value. But we need both an x and a y value. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug that x back in just like we did on the other one and figure out what the y value is. So we're going to plug it right in here. Let me change color pens here. Okay, so we're going to plug it in right here for that x. And it's a -1 is what we're going to plug in. So we would have 6. Make sure you put your parentheses in there. 6 times -1 plus 3y is equal to 0. And we're going to solve for y. So that would be -6 plus 3y is equal to 0. Adding 6 to both sides. We have 3y is equal to 6, dividing by 3 because this is multiplication. Ooh. So y would be equal to 2. Now I think my solution is x is equal to -1, y is equal to 2. I'm not going to box this in until I go up and I check and make sure this really does work in both solutions. And then you don't have to have a solution guide. All you got to do is take and plug it into your calculator and check and make sure that it really does work. So you're going to plug it into the first one. This is the x, this is the y. So we'd have 6 times a -1 plus 3 times the y, which is 2. This had better equal to 0. So -6 plus 6 is equal to 0. That is true. So it works for the first equation. We're going to make sure it really does work for the second equation. -3 times -1 plus 3 times, what do we have, 2. That should equal to 9 this time, because we plugged it into the second equation right here. So negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. And when I add that together, I really do, I got a gnat or a bug or whatever. I have 9 is equal to 9. So it worked for both equations, both the top one and the bottom one. So I'll put a box in here to say that that's a solution. Okay. There are some dangers with doing your video recording outside. Bugs tend to attack you. So let's go ahead, and I think I have 2 U-tries for you guys to do. Again, make sure that you check your work. You should be able to use your calculator to plug in your X and Y value to make sure it truly is a solution. And I'm going to pause right here and let you guys work both of those equations.